1,000 years ago, the solar system was destroyed by a mysterious life form known as Ghana, rendering humanity homeless. The survival of the human race has since depended on the seed ship Sidonia. Despite a century without Ghana attacks, Sidonia has remained vigilant, continuously training pilots to operate humanoid weapons called Gardes, humanity's sole defense against Ghana. One day, Nagate, who lives at the bottom of the spaceship, woke up hungry and sneaked into the granary to steal rice. Unfortunately, he accidentally fell into a rice container. Although he broke 2 fingers, he managed to steal some rice. However, he was caught by the patrol staff just after stealing the rice. Nagate hurriedly fled in a vehicle, but unexpectedly was knocked unconscious by a pillar in the corridor. When he awoke, he found himself in the hospital located in the middle of the spaceship. On the other side, Captain Kobayashi traced Nagate's intrusion route and discovered that Nagate's grandfather was a legendary hero with extensive combat experience. Consequently, Kobayashi summoned Nagate and greeted him with a hug, requesting he become a Gardes pilot. Thus, Nagate went from being a lowly thief from the bottom of the ship to the center of attention. Soon after, the outgoing Isana sought to befriend Nagate. Isana is a third-gender individual who can adapt their physical structure to match their companion. Isana introduced Nagate to the guard's training simulator to familiarize him with the operation of a new guards unit, drawing the attention of other pilots. However, Nagate was unfamiliar with the Type 18 model, and his performance was not ideal. During his training, Nagate learned about Ghana's weaknesses. To completely eliminate a Ghana, its core located in the brain and spinal cord must be destroyed. The only weapon capable of piercing a Ghana's core is a kabashi, of which only 28 exist on Sidonia. After brief training, Nagate was assigned his first mission. He, along with Norio and Shizuka, each leading a team of 3, set out to mine ice from a nearby asteroid. Only before departure did Nagate discover that his unit was the Tsumugi, previously piloted by a legendary hero. Norio, seeing the Tsumugi assigned to a rookie, was not pleased. Nagate proved adept with the Type 17 Tsumugi. Upon reaching the asteroid's surface and setting up the cutter, the ice quickly cracked. Numerous tentacles emerged from beneath the surface, destroying one of the guards and flinging Nagate into unconsciousness. A monster with countless tentacles then appeared. This was the Ghana, unseen for 100 years. On their first mission, the squad encountered a terrifying space creature. They could only watch as their teammates were devoured by the Ghana. Although they had simulated countless battles against Ghana, the pilots panicked and fled when faced with the actual monster, and they were not equipped with kabashi, rendering them unable to defeat the Ghana. To prevent the Ghana from approaching Sidonia, Captain Kobayashi decided to fire the heavy mass cannon. As the shell slowly moved towards the asteroid, the team on the planet received evacuation orders. Nagate, who had been unconscious, suddenly awoke and piloted his mecha towards the Ghana. In an attempt to confuse them, the Ghana mimicked the appearance of the teammates it had swallowed. An enraged Nagate fired wildly at the Ghana but was repelled by its tentacles. Shizuka took the opportunity to catch Nagate and evacuate him from the battlefield. At the same time, the fired shell was closing in on the planet. The Ghana was shattered into countless particles dispersed in space. However, without its core being destroyed, it could reassemble. Now, a greater threat was approaching Sidonia, a conglomerate resembling a spaceship made up of numerous Ghana. Back on Sidonia, Nagate was mocked as a harbinger of doom because Ghana had appeared since his arrival. More importantly, Nagate could not perform photosynthesis, which would allow humans to eat only once a week, while he still required 3 meals a day. That day, as Nagate was testing the durability of safety handrails, he was so engrossed that he unknowingly entered a women's room for photosynthesis, leading to predictable consequences. Captain Kobayashi predicted that the Ghana last encountered would catch up with Sidonia in 3 days. To prepare for the next crisis, she called upon Sidonia's 4 strongest guards pilots for a proactive strike against the Ghana. To understand real combat situations with the Ghana, they visited the school to find Nagate. Nagate told them that fighting the Ghana was similar to their training simulations, which reassured them. As the 4 guards launched into space, the highly anticipated battle commenced. They fired their particle cannons at the Ghana, successfully destroying its external placenta. To prevent its recovery, they pursued aggressively. Unexpectedly, pilot Hinata was entangled by tentacles. The captain tried to save her, but was killed by the tentacles. The captain's death drove Hinata into a frenzy, and she was subsequently knocked down by tentacles from the Ghana. Her teammates attempted a rescue but were also impaled by the tentacles. The entire expedition team was wiped out in an instant. What does an earthquake in space look like? Houses tilt, and people are battered by floating debris. Following the annihilation of the squad sent to subdue the Ghana, Captain Kobayashi decided to fire the heavy mass cannon again. However, this time, the Ghana dodged the incoming shell and headed towards Sidonia. To prevent the Ghana from reaching Sidonia, Kobayashi opted to accelerate the ship at an angle, deviating from the Ghana's path. This action would cause significant casualties among the residents, but there was no alternative. After issuing an alert, residents hurried to find safety handrails and fasten their seatbelts. As Sidonia accelerated, those who didn't secure their seatbelts in time were thrown into the air. Eventually, the ship successfully veered off the Ghana's course, but at a great cost. Despite the protection of seatbelts, the casualties far exceeded expectations. After a brief respite, a recovery team was formed to retrieve Kabashi from space. Since the Kabashi was near the limit of Sidonia's range, recovery personnel risked being unable to return if they ventured too far. Meanwhile, a defense squad of 256 guards was assembled to prevent the Ghana from returning. The recovery team ventured deep into space to search for Kabashi. Nagate detected the location of Kabashi with radar, and Norio accelerated to retrieve it. On their way back, the control room suddenly detected a high particle reaction. It was the Ghana firing a particle cannon. Although the recovery team successfully evaded the attack, their Gardes sustained varying degrees of damage. Suddenly, Shizuka's Gardes went out of control. Its operating system failed completely, exceeding the range to return to Sidonia. Before her mecha exploded, Shizuka managed to escape, but the explosion propelled her into space. Meanwhile, Nagate discovered the reason the Ghana could fire a particle cannon was that it had previously swallowed a configuration device from another guards. Armed with Kabashi, Nagate charged at the Ghana. The Ghana fired its particle cannon again, but Nagate dodged it. He then fired his particle cannon, igniting the configuration device inside the Ghana. This exposed the Ghana's core. Nagate, piloting Tsumugi at high speed, stabbed the Ghana's core with Kabashi, completely destroying the Ghana. Nagate's actions stunned everyone. Elsewhere, Shizuka continued to drift through space at a constant speed. Nagate proposed a rescue mission to the command center, fully aware that he might never return to Sidonia. Despite this, he flew towards the direction where Shizuka disappeared. Although Nagate successfully found Shizuka, the guard's energy was depleted, making the chance of returning to Sidonia very slim. Nagate deployed the guards' energy collection membrane and couldn't help but marvel at the beauty of space. Back in the cockpit, Nagate checked the food and water supplies. The food would last 2 months and the water for 14 days. However, the food supply was calculated based on the standard for photosynthesis, as Shizuka could perform photosynthesis, but Nagate could not. Thus, the food and water would sustain 2 people for no more than 10 days. Therefore, Nagate decided to sleep to conserve energy. While Nagate slept, Shizuka prepared to perform photosynthesis to replenish her energy. Coincidentally, Nagate woke up during this time. 10 days had passed, and they still hadn't caught up with Sidonia. Their food supply was exhausted, and they were at risk of dying from dehydration. On the 11th day, Nagate's consciousness began to blur from dehydration symptoms. Shizuka, desperate and unsure what to do, opened the urination tube. Their combat suits were equipped with these tubes for convenience. Shizuka filtered water and delivered it to Nagate through the tube. After rehydrating, Nagate realized that they could filter water from the guards' lubricant. They tried repeatedly and successfully extracted water from the lubricant. Nagate and Shizuka joyfully embraced each other. Just then, a bright ring rapidly approached them. The defense squad of 256 guards linked together had found them. As the 256 guards gradually detached, Nagate and Shizuka finally returned to Sidonia. Nagate became a hero in everyone's eyes, shedding any previous prejudice against him. Even his battle with the Ghana was now included in the training devices. In recognition of the recovery team's efforts in the last battle, The captain promoted the 4 of them to official guards pilots. Norio approached Nagate, hoping to resolve past misunderstandings, as they would be partners from now on. Meanwhile, the command center suddenly detected a massive Ghana, a composite of multiple cores. Sidonia faced yet another threat. A giant Ghana suddenly appeared. Before this, Nagate was dealing with his personal challenges. 2 women and a third gender individual had developed feelings for him. At Yuhata's suggestion, they planned a trip to the aquarium. Yuhata, seizing a moment when Shizuka was distracted, tried to create an opportunity to be alone with Nagate, but Isana intervened just in time. The door accidentally closed, trapping them together. Shizuka rushed to help, and as the door opened, she stumbled into the aquarium. Yuhata and Isana ended up on the ground, inadvertently helping others. However, their happy moments were brief as Nagate and Shizuka suddenly received a dispatch order. After bidding farewell, they headed to their respective battle positions. They faced a massive composite Ghana with 27 cores. The command center detected that the Ghana's tail had no cores and assigned Norio's squad to cut it off, while others bombarded the main body of the Ghana. As the battle began, members of the extermination team started falling. Norio's squad managed to plant 12 explosive bolts in the Ghana's tail, which, if detonated simultaneously, would sever it. However, Norio, jealous of Nagate, only opened communications with him and deliberately issued the detonation order solely to him, causing the simultaneous explosion to fail. Provoked, the Ghana retaliated with its tentacles, instantly downing several mechs. While Nagate was still confused, the Ghana flung him away, and his mech was caught by its tentacles. Shizuka rushed to cut the Ghana's tentacles to save Nagate, but her own mech was destroyed by the tentacles. When Nagate woke up, he found himself in the hospital. He was shocked to see the news of Shizuka's death in battle. He confronted Norio, asking why he had sabotaged him. But Norio shifted all the blame onto Nagate, plunging him into self-blame. From then on, Nagate secluded himself in his dormitory. The dorm manager, Lala, had to forcefully enter his room and reminded him of the responsibilities he carried, which helped Nagate remember his grandfather's teachings and regain his confidence. Meanwhile, due to the failure to defeat the Ghana, non-military organizations intensified their protests. They advocated for abandoning the kabashi, believing it attracted the Ghana. The captain believed that only fighting could rebuild their home and decided to have those who opposed leave the ship to prevent their rhetoric from undermining morale. The command also underwent personnel changes. Ichiru volunteered for a transfer to the front lines, and Yuhata took over as deputy commander. Yuhata detected the planet where the previously escaped Ghana was hiding, about 700,000 kilometers from Sidonia. The captain decided to take advantage of the distance and ordered the launch of an interplanetary missile to destroy the planet. Following the successful detonation of the planet, 3 Ghana were detected in the debris. Yuhata analyzed the images and discovered that they were humanoid Ghanas. This was the extermination squad's first encounter with a Gardas Ghana. The Gardas Ghana was not only agile, but also replicated the mech's capabilities. Command dispatched 3 squads to combat them. The Ghana, equipped with a Gardas acceleration device, easily dodged 2 Gardas' pursuit. Norio seized an opportunity to fire the particle cannon, hitting the Ghana, which unexpectedly cried out in pain. It turned out that a humanoid placenta was hanging outside the guard's Ghana's cockpit. The Ghana had mimicked not just the guards but the pilot as well. Meanwhile, one of the Ghana attacked another squad, and Shizuka's voice was heard from inside. Nagate immediately flew towards the Ghana, trying to awaken Shizuka. At that moment, Command received a call from the research lab, instructing them to recover the humanoid placenta. Nagate approached the Ghana and knocked down the humanoid placenta. Then, Norio pierced the main body of the Ghana with a kabashi. Nagate secured the humanoid placenta in a container. Meanwhile, Yuhata noticed that one of the Ghana was significantly different from the others. Its superior combat skills annihilated one of the squads. This was the Ghana that emitted Shizuka's voice. Perhaps due to guilt over Shizuka, Norio could not face her, losing his will to fight. Watching his teammates struggle against the Ghana and fall into a disadvantage, Nagate arrived just in time to drive the Ghana back. Seeing other squads converging, the Ghana chose to retreat. After the battle, command named this particularly capable Ghana Benisuzume. On the other side, Lala learned from Captain Kobayashi that she had decided to let the protesters disembark and granted them the technology to terraform the planet Earth. Lala wanted to stop this but was unsuccessful. Lala and Captain Kobayashi were comrades in arms 600 years ago and members of the Immortal Ship Committee, holding the secret to immortality technology. 100 years ago, Sidonia faced an invasion by the Ghana, with only 25 members of the Immortal Ship Committee and 392 ordinary crew members surviving. If it weren't for Nagate's grandfather, Hiroki, defeating the Ghana, Sidonia might have been completely destroyed. During this critical period, Isana's grandmother, Yurei, with her excellent cloning and transplantation technology and modifications to human genes for photosynthesis, solved the pressing issues of population and food shortages, thus becoming a member of the Immortal Ship Committee. Meanwhile, Hiroki suddenly disappeared, only to reappear 80 years later. Due to a long period without his special medication, his body began aging. To preserve his valuable combat experience, Kobayashi had Yurei create a clone of Hiroki, altering the genes to make the clone immortal from birth. Eventually, with Lala's help, Hiroki stole the clone and escaped to the bottom of the ship. This clone turned out to be Nagate, the humanoid placenta recovered by the research lab, transformed into the likeness of Shizuka. If the person you love came back to life and appeared before you, even if just as a body without a personality, you would probably be very happy. Not long ago, Isana accompanied Nagate to the Institute of Cosmic Biology, where researcher Numi accidentally fell into Nagate's arms. Isana immediately felt unhappy upon seeing this. Numi then took Nagate to the isolation room where he was shocked by what he saw next. The humanoid placenta he had previously recovered had completely transformed into the appearance of Shizuka, wrapped in red placenta and tentacles. However, this Shizuka lacked human personality, though she retained vague memories of Nagate. Suddenly, Nagate received a sortie order as a Ghana appeared within Sidonia's alert range. Nagate prepared to pilot the Sugimori, which was now equipped with a kabashi. It turned out he had been promoted to squad leader, and Ichiru had also become a team member. Nagate's squad began to excel, consistently defeating Ghana and achieving commendable results. However, after each mission, Nagate would visit the lab to see Shizuka, whose existence ignited new hope in him. As he repeatedly faced the Ghana and his team grew stronger, Nagate hoped to one day awaken Shizuka's personality. One day, as usual, Nagate was with Shizuka and discovered that she had begun to mimic standing like a human. On the other side, Isana and Yuhata, seeing Nagate's continuous obsession with the Shizuka placenta, formed a united front. Yuhata approached Nagate because of the ongoing battles, suggesting they go out to clear their minds. Just as Nagate returned to his dorm, Isana invited him out for the same reason. On the day of the outing, they formed a trio and visited an inn where Nagate was surprised to find that the landlady was the captain, who usually wore a mask, which is why Isana and Yuhata did not recognize her. However, Yuhata had another reason for visiting the inn. She had discovered from books that there was a century-old research institute beneath it, once used by a scientist named Ochiai. The three went underground and Nagate, using his unmatched sense of smell, located an elevator. They took it to a zero-gravity zone where Isana, not wearing gravity shoes, had to cling to Nagate. Suddenly, a masked figure emerged from the shadows, and soon after, Nagate and the others were knocked out by an anesthetic needle. When Nagate woke up, he was presented with a humanoid Ghana. The captain explained that this was not a Ghana, but a hybrid of human and Ghana placenta, a subject of Ochiai's research. Although dead, it emitted radiation like a kabashi, attracting Ghana. Meanwhile, they had used the hybrid's body as a basis to develop a new type of weapon, now being developed by TOA Heavy Industries. The captain asked Nagate to test the new weapon. Nagate and Yuhata met with Sasaki, who was in charge of developing the new weapon, to learn about it. While they were enjoying the tour, an alert about a Ghana encounter was issued. The command center detected a Ghana approaching the migrant ship that had previously detached. Given the distance between the Ghana and the migrant ship, it was too late to dispatch regular Garde's mechas. Nagate requested to launch in the new mecha equipped with a high-speed acceleration device and an artificial kabashi that could penetrate the core of the Ghana. The Ghana disintegrated instantly under the power of the new weapon, marking a milestone for every pilot. After the operation, Nagate visited Shizuka at the Research Institute again. Shizuka had learned to write Nagate's name on the glass, which delighted him. Meanwhile, at the Institute, Numi noticed that Shizuka was always looking in one direction. After analysis, it was discovered that she was looking towards the warehouse where the kabashis were stored. In the depths of distant space, Benisuzume was also watching the same direction. You would never imagine that this planet-like object in front of you is actually a mass of flesh. Guards fly above it like birds, and their bombardments make no impact on it. Faced with such a colossal creature, how is humanity supposed to overcome it? This is probably the greatest danger Sidonia has faced in 100 years. A flesh mass composed of countless Ghana has entered Sidonia's flight path, and its volume is 8,000 times that of Sidonia, reaching a size that induces despair. The Ghana consumed a small asteroid with its placenta and is preparing to collide with Sidonia. Yuhata decided to initiate a slight acceleration to shift Sidonia off its course. The tilt angle of the spacecraft was minor, so it did not damage the residential areas. Unexpectedly, just as the ship deviated from its course, the Ghana also corrected its trajectory. It turned out there was a biological propulsor behind the Ghana, and Sidonia could no longer dodge. The command center had no choice but to launch the interplanetary missile again, but it had to clear the Ghana's placenta before hitting the asteroid. Thus, 48 Guardies equipped with new weapons rushed to clear the placenta before the missile strike. Only when the Guardies squad arrived in front of the Ghana did the pilots feel how insignificant they were in its presence. The 48th mechas split into two teams. The first team was responsible for disabling its counterattack capabilities, and the second team aimed to destroy the Ghana's propulsor. The first team targeted various cores of the Ghana and fired, but they could not inflict substantial damage. Meanwhile, the second team reached directly in front of the propulsor, which was like a volcano ready to erupt. Their shooting was like firing into lava. At this point, the Ghana began firing its particle cannon in retaliation, instantly bringing down several guards. To more effectively dodge the Ghana's particle cannon, the first team urgently descended, flying close to the Ghana to reduce the likelihood of being hit. Meanwhile, the second squad was damaging the propulsor. Just as they reached 90% completion, their signal suddenly vanished. A red light flashed across the screen, and before the second squad could react, they were annihilated by Benisuzume. Now, only the first squad's 14 Guardies remain, making it nearly impossible to destroy the Ghana. With 1 hour left until the missile hits the asteroid, Yuhata remained calm and sought a strategy. She discovered many cavities inside the Ghana and came up with a desperate plan. She decided to use all of Sidonia's energy to fire a massive particle cannon, creating a breach by piercing the Ghana's placenta. Then, the Guardies squad would infiltrate the Ghana's interior, destroy its core, and allow the missile to shatter the asteroid. If this plan fails, Sidonia would be completely destroyed. The moment the massive particle cannon hit the Ghana, the entire space was enveloped in blue light. Even such a powerful strike could only tear part of the Ghana's placenta, but it was enough. Next, the guard squad took over, penetrating the Ghana through the breach to destroy its core. However, Benisuzume attacked the guard squad. At a critical moment, Nagate, piloting Tsumugi, stopped Benisuzume. Meanwhile, the Ghana's placenta was rapidly regenerating. In the final seconds before the breach closed, several Guardies mechas rushed into the Ghana, and their communication was cut off. Elsewhere, Nagate was still engaged in a fierce battle with Benisuzume. Suddenly, the Ghana fired multiple particle cannons, hitting Nagate and knocking him unconscious. Seeing this, Isana rushed to help Nagate, risking overloading her own mech to lift him to safety. Then Benisuzume attacked Isana from behind. When Nagate regained consciousness, he prepared to rescue Isana but was blocked by Benisuzume. The two mechs resumed their fierce battle. Benisuzume's speed was too great, and Nagate's particle cannon shots missed. As Benisuzume closed in, Nagate decided to fire the mechanical hand holding the shell, successfully hitting Benisuzume's core. Meanwhile, the guard squad continued to delve deeper into the Ghana, finally finding a heart-like core at its center. After the successful operation, the squad urgently evacuated. The launched interplanetary missile had already reached the surface of the asteroid and detonated successfully after a brief 5 seconds. The remaining guard squad members were still out of contact. Isana, who survived, thought everyone had been caught in the explosion. To her surprise, she looked up and saw 7 guards slowly flying towards her. Sidonia had successfully averted destruction. Returning from the operation, Nagate visited the placenta Shizuka at the research lab as usual, but Shizuka had disappeared, leaving only Nagate's name on the glass. Deep in space, a red creature was murmuring Nagate's name. Curious, the girl touched a cactus, and the next second, her finger broke off. Norio hurried to check on her, but she had already turned into a corpse. In his shock, Norio felt a blur slash across his cheek and then collapsed to the ground. A bug crawled out of a fallen bottle and approached him. The scene shifted, and the girl mysteriously came back to life, with tentacles writhing in her eyes. Ochi, an extremist scientist put to sleep by the captain 100 years ago, had controlled both Norio and the girl Kunato with his researched blood nematodes, turning them into puppets. Norio went to the Institute of Space Biology, inheriting his family's tech development role, and visited the placenta Shizuka specimen. Impressed by its perfect form, Norio praised it openly. He believed humans were primitive beings endlessly consuming resources and sought an immortal evolution like the Ghana. Under Ochiai's control, Norio revealed his madness, anesthetized Numi, and placed blood nematodes in her eyes. He then took the placenta Shizuka. When Nagate returned to see Shizuka, she was no longer at the institute, and Numi seemed like a different person. Later, Nagate accidentally learned from Norio that the placenta Shizuka had been taken by the Norio family for secret research, authorized by the captain. Consequently, Nagate spent his days in a training simulator, battling Ghana to try to forget placenta Shizuka. Suddenly, a Ghana detection alarm went off, signaling the presence of a massive single Ghana. Yuhata immediately dispatched the guard squad. Sasaki had also upgraded Nagate's Tsugumori, enhancing its speed beyond the linked speed and significantly increasing its sniping range. Nagate aimed at the Ghana's main body, expecting an easy takedown, but was surprised when the fired shell was intercepted by the Ghana's placenta. Analysis revealed that the Ghana had developed an adaptive placenta to defend against long-range, single-point shots. The team decided to concentrate fire on one point, attempting to penetrate the placenta with continuous shooting. Just as they were about to succeed, the Ghana's particle reaction spiked dramatically, and it fired its particle cannon, scattering the guard squad. The placenta began to regenerate rapidly. At the same time, Command detected a new Ghana approaching the battlefield at 10 times the speed, carrying a super high-density particle reaction. Yuhata urgently instructed Nagate and the others to evade. A massive particle cannon hit directly struck the Ghana. As they regained their composure, everyone was shocked by the appearance of the new Ghana. Upon first meeting, Tsumugi presented Sidonia with a grand gesture by rapidly spinning and piercing through a Ghana. The idea of a Ghana cannibalizing its own kind and aiding humans was unthinkable. Commands were immediately requested from headquarters to eliminate it. At this point, the captain revealed the truth. Tsumugi was actually the latest weapon, controlled internally by Norio. Norio introduced it as his latest innovation, a hybrid being with a consciousness similar to humans. A century ago, Ochi almost destroyed Sidonia while developing such hybrids, leading to his banishment by the captain. Now this technology was reintroduced. Seeing this, the elders of the Immortal Ship Committee chastised Captain Kobayashi for her irrational actions and expressed their dissatisfaction. Consequently, the elders decided to impeach Kobayashi. The impeachment was unanimously passed by the Immortal Ship Committee, and they recommended one of their members as the next captain. Suddenly, Captain's assistant Ochi, who is a clone of the original Ochi, interrupted them. The elders mocked him as merely a tool. Ochi then concentrated several bullets in his palm, and in the next second, the mocking elders were killed. It was then that the captain slowly emerged from behind the door. Elsewhere, to alleviate everyone's fear of the hybrid entity Tsumugi, Norio gathered everyone for an explanation. As a hybrid of humans and Ghana, Tsumugi sparked both curiosity and fear. However, she behaved like an obedient child, diligently answering everyone's questions. Especially when she saw Nagate, she felt a special thrill, similar to a pet wagging its tail uncontrollably upon seeing its owner. Norio had to abruptly end the session and leave with Tsumugi. Interested in learning more about Tsumugi, Nagate and Isana visited Norio's residence. They descended underground where the walls were covered in Ghana rust. Tsumugi slowly stood up, visibly happy to see Nagate. White tentacles emerged from her chest, quickly reaching towards Nagate. Seeing this, Isana's face turned pale, but she couldn't avoid the tentacle massage. As they left, Isana's legs were weak, but she felt a closer bond with Tsumugi. This decision marks one of humanity's boldest in 1,000 years. After eliminating those who resisted her, the captain decided to redirect Sidonia's destination to the Lem system. The seventh planet of the Lem system is suitable for human colonization. However, Sidonia will also face the largest Ghana attack to date. This time, the captain chose not to flee, but to navigate Sidonia into the orbit of the ninth planet, using the planet cluster as a barrier to attack the Ghana. This will be a critical battle for human survival. In preparation, TOA and Norio developed a super material, a groundbreaking achievement comparable to hybrid entities. This material is not only extremely hard, but also lightweight. Once applied to the guards' mechas, it will significantly enhance their combat capabilities. Together with the hybrid entity Tsumugi, birthed by the placental Shizuka, this forms Sidonia's strategic defense against the Ghana. Meanwhile, Isana, after several interactions with Tsumugi, grew increasingly harmonious with her. Suddenly, Nagate received a message to have Tsumugi participate in coordination training with the guards. Just as she went outside, she detected Ghana entering the alert perimeter. The command detected about 500 cores in this Ghana, continuously launching smaller Ghana towards Sidonia. At this point, Norio requested Yuhata to allow them to engage in battle, intending for Tsumugi to demonstrate her combat abilities alone. Once granted permission, Tsumugi charged forward. As she was about to contact the Ghana, they suddenly dispersed in a circular formation and connected with other Ghana. Yuhata immediately instructed Tsumugi to stop, but due to her momentum, she still plunged into the sphere formed by the Ghana placenta. Meanwhile, the guard squad assembled to support Tsumugi, with 96 guards heading to aid her. Their mission was to eliminate all Ghana. The squad deployed in battle formation, spreading into several matrices, ready for action. They fired barrages at the Ghana, breaking them down one by one. However, this level of firepower was not enough to destroy them completely. The squad continuously intensified their firepower, successfully slowing the Ghana's advance. At this moment, Command detected that the Ghana trapping Tsumugi was undergoing a mutation, expanding outward and suddenly bursting, disintegrating all the Ghana into foam. The guards' pilots were shocked by this scene. At the center of the debris, Tsumugi stood defiantly. She had single-handedly dealt with many Ghana, but was also variously injured. Yuhata ordered her to retreat. Experiencing pain for the first time, Tsumugi began to lose her sanity. Desiring to spare others from her pain, she ignored the retreat order and continued to fight. Seeing her determined eyes, Norio, who controlled her, panicked. Tsumugi rapidly headed back to the battlefield. At that moment, the guard squad was fiercely battling with the Ghana, struggling to hold their ground. Then, Tsumugi, in a frenzy, charged into the Ghana, tearing them apart with her claws. Despite her severe injuries, she was overwhelmed by the numerous Ghana. Even when knocked down, Tsumugi stood up and charged again. Isana, unable to bear seeing Tsumugi like this, ventured into the fray to awaken her sanity, but was struck by a nearby Ghana. Hearing Isana's scream, Tsumugi stopped, regained her senses, and rescued Isana. Following the command, she retreated from the battlefield. After Tsumugi's slaughter, few Ghana remained. After clearing the smaller Ghana, the guard squad began attacking the Ghana's main body. They formed a ring around the Ghana and fired continuously. Just as they thought they had the upper hand, the Ghana's placenta slowly unfolded, revealing a giant particle cannon formed by the fusion of other Ghana bodies at its center. It was gathering energy to fire at Sidonia. A hit would paralyze Sidonia. The guard squad used all their firepower to try to stop the launch, but too many barriers surrounded the particle cannon, making it impossible to hit. They failed to prevent the launch. As the massive energy passed, everything was illuminated. Tsumugi, returning with Isana, felt the crisis and stopped. She used part of her placenta to shield Isana and the other half to block the particle cannon, causing a deflection. This saved Sidonia. Before they could catch their breath, the Ghana prepared to fire the particle cannon again. This time, it had to be stopped at all costs. Nagate approached the Ghana, accelerating his mecha to maximum speed and diving straight toward it. Moments before collision, Nagate detached his back thruster. The thruster rushed towards the cannon inside the Ghana. It exploded within the Ghana, exposing its core as the placenta could no longer cover it. The Garde's squad took this opportunity to unleash their full firepower and successfully destroyed the Ghana. At that moment, an urgent distress call from Isana came through. You can't imagine a species surviving after losing 90% of its body tissue. This is the life characteristic of the cosmic creature Ghana. Recently, the hybrid Tsumugi blocked a particle cannon shot by Ghana to save Sidonia, which severely damaged her body. The remaining tissue was taken back by Norio to a cultivation tank. Norio promised Nagate that he would fully restore Tsumugi to her original state. Meanwhile, Isana, who lost a hand and a foot in a Ghana attack, was fitted with mechanical limbs and soon left the hospital. She and Nagate visited Tsumugi together. Norio's home was filled with flowers and caring messages, slowly earning Tsumugi recognition from everyone. They went underground and saw Tsumugi slowly recovering, their eyes filled with pity. Despite being a newborn, she had suffered such trauma. Throughout Tsumugi's long recovery, Nagate was deeply saddened until one day, he learned from Kunato that Tsumugi's placenta had almost fully recovered. Overjoyed, Nagate ran to Tsumugi's side. Seeing her wriggling tentacles, Nagate's gloom lifted. For the next few days, he kept her company until he fell asleep on her tentacles and dreamed of Shizuka. When Nagate woke up, he found Tsumugi fully conscious and instinctively hugged her, which caught her off guard. Fortunately, Isana arrived just in time to ease the awkwardness. After her recovery, Tsumugi got a new room. Although it was much nicer, it was far from the residential area. Tsumugi often felt bored and lonely. So, Nagate and Isana opened an access point in the residential area's pipeline to let Tsumugi come out and experience the local scenery closely. That night, Nagate returned to his dorm to find his belongings thrown into the hallway, as his room had been given to a new trainee. Meanwhile, Isana was discussing personal topics with her grandmother when Nagate called, asking to stay at her place. Unbeknownst to him, Isana, being third gender, was undergoing physical changes. Nagate arrived at Isana's place and a dramatic scene unfolded. Isana accidentally kicked the floor and fell, and Nagate quickly protected her. After regaining their composure, Nagate felt something was off about Isana's body. Just then, Tsumugi emerged from the floor, easing the awkwardness. The next day, Nagate found a room closest to Tsumugi, which she could access directly through the pipes. He invited Isana to move in with him. Tsumugi often visited Nagate's house through the pipes. That day, as Nagate was preparing to sleep, Tsumugi suddenly visited, asking if she could sleep with him, leading to a sleepless night for Nagate. To prepare for the battle against the Ghana group from the LEM system, Dr. Yuri tirelessly developed new weapons and enhanced the coordination training between the guards and Tsumugi. Tsumugi's speed was incredibly fast, easily surpassing the linked speed of the guards. The link speed between Nagate and Tsumugi even reached 10 times that, making them appear like shooting stars moving through the starry sky. You've probably never met someone whose gender orientation is unknown. This is the third gender. To determine their gender as male or female depends on their first romantic interest. If they develop feelings for a male, their body will start to change towards female. Isana is a third gender individual. One day, as she and Nagate were preparing for routine training, she suddenly found that her combat suit couldn't recognize her. Despite repeated attempts to fix it, she was unsuccessful. With time running out, Isana had to forcefully hack into the suit to control it. Having spent a lot of time with Nagate, Isana gradually developed feelings for him, which led her body to change towards female. This sudden change left both of them unsure how to react. On the other side, a graviton radiation emitter, secretly developed by the higher-ups, was undergoing covert testing. The device easily penetrated an asteroid with its radiation. Just as they were about to conclude the test, an accident occurred. Since the emitter was made using Ghana's placenta, it began to malfunction while they were attempting to cut off the power supply. The device uncontrollably absorbed Sidonia's energy, causing gravitational disturbances throughout Sidonia. Yuhata urgently investigated the cause and dispatched guards to the scene. The runaway emitter continued to erode Sidonia, posing an unstoppable threat. Ochi had no choice but to conduct an emergency evacuation with the captain. The moment they left, the control panel was destroyed by tentacles. When the guard squad arrived, casualties were mounting. Yuhata wondered why Ghana was on Sidonia and discovered the incident area was near Norio's new weapons factory. Realizing the connection, although it was a classified matter, the urgency forced Yuhata to order the guards to attack the Ghana. However, all attacks were absorbed by the Ghana, which retaliated with its tentacles. Meanwhile, headquarters detected a sharp increase in the Ghana's particle reaction, and it suddenly expanded and disappeared. Afterward, the higher-ups covered up the true nature of the incident, falsely claiming the Ghana came from a nearby asteroid and self-destructed during the guard squad's assault. Seeing the new weapon's power reinforced the captain's resolve to continue its development, despite the accident. TOA also developed the Hayakaze, specialized armor linked with an artificial kabashi at its front. When necessary, the Hayakaze-equipped Guardi squad becomes a suicide squad poised to win the battle in the LEM system against the Ghana. This robot was too deceitful. It ambushed the man when he wasn't paying attention. The man fell to the ground and pulled out his pistol, shooting through the robot with one shot. The pistol in the man's hand is the ultimate weapon currently under development by Sidonia. To expedite the development of the graviton radiation emitter, Isana's grandmother sought assistance from Sasaki. Meanwhile, the crew urgently repaired a large hole caused by the Ghana on the spaceship. After the repairs, Tsumugi and Nagate would link and return together, much like a couple, with Isana quietly following behind them. At the same time, Sidonia officially entered the LEM system, putting the entire ship on high alert. Capturing the 9th planet became a top priority. Norio, controlled by Ochi, was secretly conducting research on an ultimate life form from 100 years ago. A few days later, Isana received a scouting mission to the 9th planet. The scouting team would link with the latest Hayakaze and enter the interior of the 9th planet. After successfully linking, they headed towards the 9th planet at maximum output power. The scouting mission was highly dangerous, and Nagate, who remained on standby at the base, was very worried about Isana. At this time, the scouting team had reached the far side of the 9th planet, a gas giant similar to Jupiter, surrounded by a ring of rocky satellites. Ghana could appear from any unknown location at any time. Isana detected an unknown object ahead on their flight path and fired a particle cannon to probe it. The object then began to react, and a gigantic Ghana emerged in front of them. They were too late to avoid it. Yuhata immediately ordered the scouting team to detach from the Hayakaze, which then directed its warhead towards the Ghana. However, it failed to damage even the Ghana's placenta. Seeing this, the scouting team had no choice but to scatter and flee. Facing the Ghana, the 4 of them were like ants. Meanwhile, Isana continued to dodge the Ghana's pursuit with all her might. This creature represents the pinnacle of Ghana's combat abilities. It is Benisuzume, who has almost perfectly mimicked human appearance and combat skills. Recently, Isana was sent on a scouting mission to the 9th planet, but encountered a Ghana attack. In an emergency, Isana and the captain broke into the planet's atmosphere, using the invisible air and floating islands to evade the Ghana's pursuit. However, the Ghana seemed to have a tracking ability, always precisely sensing their location. When Isana's booster was accidentally hit, she discovered the Ghana chasing after the device. Thinking quickly, Isana realized the Ghana might be attracted to the particles from the guard's mecha. She decisively discarded the guard's fuel, and as expected, the Ghana chased after the falling fuel. Isana and the captain then took the opportunity to escape deeper into the planet. Meanwhile, at command, because the scouting team was out of contact, the captain ordered a strike operation against the Ghana on the 9th planet, rather than prioritizing a rescue. The standby Gardes pilots were somewhat dissatisfied. Seeing Isana in danger, Tsumugi also wanted to assist. To prevent Tsumugi from losing control like before, Norio suggested to the captain that Nagate and Tsumugi could be dispatched as a vanguard team. This would not only stabilize Tsumugi's emotional fluctuations, but also enhance their joint combat capabilities. Furthermore, Nagate's mecha had been remodeled with new, lighter, and more durable supermaterials. After preparations, Nagate and Tsumugi linked and flew towards the planet. Inside, they still could not detect Isana's signal. Just as they were about to break into the atmosphere, they encountered a Ghana reaction in front. The two quickly coordinated and eliminated the Ghana, then continued to venture deeper into the atmosphere. A particle cannon hit directly struck Nagate and Tsumugi. Nagate's mecha lost control and crashed onto a floating island, creating a deep crater. Fortunately, thanks to the super materials used in its construction, the mecha was not severely damaged. Nagate then returned to the sky to search for Tsumugi. At that time, Tsumugi was fiercely battling a red Ghana. This Ghana was not only extremely fast, but also used the surrounding floating islands as barriers to block attacks. It was only when the mist gradually cleared that Nagate was shocked to discover that the Ghana was Benisuzume. She was then hit by Tsumugi's particle cannon, but she completely blocked it with her placenta. Tsumugi engaged in close combat with Benisuzume to hold her off, allowing Nagate to quickly search for Isana. The two red lights struggled evenly in the sky. Is it possible that there are creatures beyond our understanding on those unknown planets? Inside this Jupiter-like planet, Isana and the captain encountered a huge humanoid Ghana. Eventually, they passed through a narrow passageway, trapping the Ghana inside. However, they found themselves at a cliff's edge with numerous smaller Ghana pursuing them. Suddenly, a laser interrupted the Ghana's attack, and numerous Ghana charged towards the falling duo. At the last moment, Nagate, piloting his mecha, rescued them. While dodging Ghana fire, Nagate quickly retreated from the scene. Unexpectedly, a tentacle from the flank entangled his mecha. Nagate tried to break free but was flung onto a floating island. He quickly adjusted his shooting angle and eliminated the pursuing Ghana with one shot. During these brief seconds of delay, countless Ghana had already surrounded them. Nagate immediately responded by anchoring his mecha to the ground, forming a turret-like position to fight the Ghana. Even after using his last cannon round, 3 Ghana remained. Nagate then drew his backup knife for close combat. With his exceptional combat skills, he quickly ended the battle. On another front, Tsumugi and Benisuzume had been fighting for several rounds. Although Tsumugi was superior in performance, Benisuzume continually used the terrain to counterattack. After a prolonged, fierce battle, Benisuzume began to weaken. Tsumugi seized the opportunity to knock Benisuzume down onto a floating island, completely destroying her placenta. As Tsumugi opened up the placenta to search for the core, she found a placenta resembling Shizuka inside. Tsumugi hesitated momentarily, which Benisuzume used to her advantage, absorbing energy from Tsumugi. Tsumugi exerted all her strength to break the spikes. At this moment, Benisuzume fully revived, rejuvenating and piercing Tsumugi's chest with spikes. Suddenly, Nagate charged at Benisuzume, pinning her firmly to the ground. He prepared to fire his particle cannon, but was interrupted by Benisuzume, who damaged the firing mechanism. Regaining awareness, Nagate found Benisuzume lurking behind him, choking his mecha's neck, while continuously extending tentacles into his cockpit. In an emergency, Nagate fired his chest cannon, severing Benisuzume's body. However, her tentacles had already invaded the cockpit. Incredibly, a naked woman appeared before Nagate, the devoured Shizuka. This was a full-force sweep operation by Sidonia, with Hayakaze carrying 100 guards in an attack formation. Bullets rained down on the Ghana. Due to Benisuzume's incursion into Nagate's cockpit using a Shizuka-formed placenta, Isana urgently contacted Nagate, urging him to close the mecha's neck isolation barrier and detach the head to block the placenta's path. However, Nagate was immobilized, and the placenta Shizuka had cut off the mecha's power supply. Although Nagate realized the Shizuka before him was not real, he was too weak to resist. At that moment, Isana successfully connected the backup power on Nagate's mecha, urgently closed the neck barrier, and detached the head. Then, the placenta, Shizuka, was removed from Nagate. He controlled his mecha to pierce Benisuzume's core, causing her to disintegrate into foam. Freed from his predicament, Nagate quickly rescued Tsumugi, who was severely injured. However, the battle with Benisuzume also attracted surrounding planetary Ghana. With Tsumugi severely injured and Nagate out of ammunition, the dense swarm of Ghana left little hope for survival. Yet Nagate refused to give up. As the Ghana swarmed in, countless shells shot through the atmosphere targeting the Ghana. The guard squad aboard Hayakaze arrived just in time for support, continuously suppressing fire over the planet. Just recently, Yuhata proposed to the captain a sweep operation against the Ghana on Planet 9, using Nagate and others as bait to gather the Ghana together and then annihilate them with concentrated firepower from above. Subsequently, the Ghana extermination team from Hayakaze arrived at the battlefield, and under intense firepower, the number of Ghana rapidly decreased. With the last Ghana defeated, the team achieved a complete victory without any losses. The captain highly appreciated Yuhata's strategy. However, Yuhata was unsettled upon seeing the scene inside Nagate's cockpit, where the leftover placenta Shizuka was lying in Nagate's arms. Thus, Nagate returned to Sidonia with Tsumugi in one arm, Shizuka lying in the cockpit, and Isana in the rear cabin. Meanwhile, Sidonia officially entered the orbit of Planet 9's moon, and Ochiai's secretly researched ultimate life form was nearing completion. In recognition of Nagate's achievements in battle, the captain awarded him a Medal of Honor, making him a true knight of Sidonia. This harmonious and joyful scene resembled the time when Nagate was promoted to an official pilot. The people were the same, except Shizuka was no longer there. Nagate returned to the grain storage where everything had started, having transformed from a grain thief to a respected knight. He relived the training devices he had used day and night, and his grandfather's teachings were clear in his mind. He did not let his grandfather down. Yet, the battle with the Ghana continued, and Nagate was determined to protect Sidonia in his grandfather's stead.